Okay, Nathan, this is what I'm doing on these Hanes 100% poly shirts. Bear with this thing moving around some. I gotta switch hands. I don't have room on this job to set up my tripod. What I'm doing, which you know you guys don't have to, but I'm using a little bit of puff in here because I've printed this job for years and years now, and I used to underbase it with white, and I got to where I just started using a yellow with some puff in it, and I'm using a version of my teeter-totter. This is in a 280 screen. And that's about how high my flash is. It could be lower, but on these that's okay. That's probably 2 inches, and I've got it set about 1/8 of the way up. Okay, that's what I've got with a gelled 2-coat yellow puff. And the red's just those little teeth. I print it once, break the screen, print it twice. You don't have to flash that. And I'll show you just a minute what that right there comes out like. Okay, now my dryer is a percentage dryer. I've got forced air, I've got a belt speed, and my heat is done percentage. You see right there, I'm at 75% on my heat, to where I run all of my shirts and everything else at 89. So that, whatever you have to figure out difference in percentage or heat, that's where I'm at to get what I want on these. Preston or Frog, they know how to convert that kind of stuff, so most of the time I just call them. I'll show you the back. Okay, this is my line of shirts. That was the very first shirt at t-shirt temperature, and it's showing up brighter than what it is. It's yellow blued down enough to where it's almost green instead of yellows. That was too hot. It raised up, collapsed, plus I gassed the shirt. The Zorros and stuff that I print now, I print them almost exactly the same temperature as my t-shirts, and this doesn't happen. So these are going to gas. There's like the second one, the third, the fourth, the fifth. This is at the setting that I told you I'm at now, and that's nice bright yellow and red. And then here's the one that I just printed. So whatever that equates to temperature wise, I'm gonna guess maybe even 25, 30 degrees. And I run hot on my t-shirts now, so I'm probably at 350 or so on most of my t-shirts. I do back down to about 5 of my percentage points for sweatshirts, because I do a lot of sweatshirts, and it cures them well, and it keeps the colors really bright. You know, I use a good opaque white when I'm using the white, but this here, and I mean, granted, it would look better if it was underbased. That one right there just sucks. But that's what they're getting, and I'm very happy with that. What I'm thinking now, on that one you said you had to do for that team, the next one of these I do, I will underbase. I won't necessarily use poly now because my low bleed white works on the Zorell so well. I'll probably still go ahead and use it here. But you know, naturally the poly would be better, but poly's harder for me to print than my low bleed white. When I can make it work, I really do. And I don't really like the blue tint that's in the white of the Union Poly. If I can get my regular white to be white, it's a prettier white to me than what a Poly white is. I'm kind of backing up a little bit here. Maybe I can move this to the front of the video. But, you know, I use my spray gun to tack everything with the water-based glue cut about 30%. These things here, if you're using a web tack or a over bubbly mist, if you've got any bubbles there, take a piece of cloth and just run it over the top of it to break the bubbles and to smooth, like if it was like real webby, to smooth the web down. Because if you put this kind of shirt on a wet bubble, it's going to show and you can't get it out. Trust me. Once you put them on, I give them like a half quick flash. So any shrinkage that's going to happen in the polyester is done before I start printing. That helps on these a lot. Okay, something that I might better clear up on this red. You know, I told you I had the yellow. I told you I had it in a 280 screen. I've got the red in an 86. That's why I just print once, break the screen, because when you break the screen, it pulls the ink out. Because really, when you screen print, all you do is fill the screen up and shear it off. That's when you're printing the best. That's an 86 screen, just one time, no flash, with a double hit, but make sure you break in between so you clear the screen, load it, and print it again. Nathan, since I'm more talking to you on this thing here, since me and you's just garage shops now, I take my shirts, regardless of what they are or how many or whatever, check them off on the front end, and naturally, you know, every time you change sizes or automatic folds, you fold like the tail up, because I pull different sizes, different lengths up on the neck board. If you count them in here, you don't have to worry about them again. If you print all that one size, stop, go pick them up, you don't have to look at necks anymore. That is a huge time saver for a one-man shop. Okay, here, pre-dryer, what it looks like on the hoodies. And then, like I said, I run the hoodies 5%, whatever that works out to, get somebody to figure out temperature-wise, cooler at the same speed in my dryer to get the same thing I'm after on a t-shirt. Because a lot of my unit work, I print different types of garments all in the same run at the same time with the same ink. I just adjust things to make it look right on them. If you've got poly, you're gonna fight bleed somewhere. You're gonna fight temperature somewhere. But once you get everything down to where you want it at, whether you're percentage or temperature, write it down. You come back to that garment, unless the manufacturer changes something, you just go right back to it. Don't have to do any testing and just print away. Here's the sweats coming out. That's the reason I use this puff so much. It makes my printing on me so much easier to get a bright color. And since I put so little puff stuff in it, all I do is rise it up and collapse it. Feel wise, there's just barely a feel up on that. It's not like a puff like when you want something to be puffed up. Like I said, none of this is underbased with white. And the only difference I made in printing 2 colors or 3 colors is because I put about 6 or 7% puff. Cure as hot as a regular t-shirt. So in my mind, what I'm doing is the puff starts to come up, and you can look through the dryer now and see it. It starts to come up just on exit. It collapses and does its smoke. And I don't print anything plastisol. I don't get smoke. Just a little bitty breath of it at the very end of the dryer to really have a good feeling that it's cured. When I was guessing at my temperature on the percent thing, I've read all kinds of different things with one of those laser temperature guns and those thermal heat strips that you run through the dryer. And in my dryer, let me see if we can see this. But it's got cowl rods, like oven elements in it. That's what I like about this Cincinnati dryer. You just replace a oven element, and see, I've got one in there that's only like about hitting 60%, but I've got 4 banks, so with my speed I can still control the temperature that I'm after, because I print t-shirts kind of like I cook. The t-shirt tells me when it's right as much as when I tell it. Y'all remember that screen that I showed you that I fixed that whole bottom in with my little glue and extra screen deal? Remember? Probably some of you seen that. You know, that split all the way across the bottom. I guess it's because of the humidity, but for some reason this year in the dark room I've had the bottom or the top, it went in the dark room good, while the humidifier, which is this is the first year I've ever used a humidifier, while it was drying they come loose or popped. So this was an experiment, but I knew it would work. This thing here, you can't believe. Look at those. Look at those letters. With those blowouts up the top. That eye right there is double imaged. That's what this print has to look like. Don't ask me why. I'm just a printer. Something else I do, this is the next little over the heart that I'm doing. You can tell I keep dirty tables. But see how small those register marks are there? If it's something that's loose, I use a big register mark. If it's something that's going to be real tight, I use a small register mark. And then these have like a 1-point trap in them. These are going to go on black shirts, and I'm going to put, it's supposed to be white, yellow, and black. That's the white. That right there, can't even see it. That's going to be the yellow. I'll show you a shirt. But the little register marks help you get it in tighter than being with a big register mark. Okay, now if you're wondering why I register to the positives, is because I don't save positives. I use my inkjet. I print off of a 3000, Epson 3000 using AccuRip. I've got a ink that I get from overseas, and I'm having trouble with it not turning into magenta or bleeding out on the films. So if I want a good dark film, it's got to be within a days of printing. The humidity is so much that the paper or the ink or something, that black right there, in a week from now will be a light magenta. Like I said, I don't save films, so I just register to them, and if you let your tables get as dirty as I do mine, sometimes you even have to put a piece of white paper down underneath it to see through it. I've always used, as long as I can remember, long as it's been out, QTX, the Ulano QTX emulsion. It's a 1-part with high solids that exposes real fast, and I've had such good luck with it over the years. I've never changed until the last year and a half. TubeLight, who I get most of my stuff from, mainly because of free delivery, has pretty much everything that I want. But on the film, I go ahead and get the non-waterproof. It will stay black for me a couple days longer than the waterproof will, because the waterproof has got that kind of cloud to it, that coating on it, and till I get done with this ink now, I'm not changing, and I hope to God when I change to the stuff you guys are using, it doesn't clog up my 3000 on me. But that's what I do with film, so that's the reason that I register to the film. Okay, this is like flat, no puff white through an 86 screen with a flood print, dry stroke print. No, wait, back up. A flood print flash, dry stroke white flash. And then because of my seps, I don't have to print black on top of this to cut them guns up. I use the shirt for that. You never did tell me if that sep that I did that I was wanting to know about worked or not. I'm assuming it didn't, so if it didn't, keep your mouth shut and don't say anything about it. But if it worked, let me know something about it. Look at that. What a lazy dog or what? I get to printing or sewing on the embroidery machine and they all go crazy and go to sleep. I told you that I had this white in a 86 and I am holding some detail in it now, but that's the reason that I did the flood print flash, then a dry stroke print flash, and I forgot to tell you what the yellow was. The yellow is the same yellow puff that I just used a few minutes ago. And on all those shirts and all these shirts, I hadn't used but just a little bit more than what's left on that squeegee there. But I do 2 dry stroke prints in a 158. And then I'll show you what it looks like on the other end. Okay, here's my shirts. See, it's got I can't see it in the screen as good, but it's got the detail in the guns. What was supposed to go in there in the black was that small of detail. It wasn't hardly any detail. So I cut this one down to 2 color instead of 3 because I'm lazy. Okay, one more thing I left out. I'm about to burn up, guys. I'm a squeegee, fanatic. I've got more squeegees than anybody. This one here is a 70 tri-blade for me to get what I'm after as far as the shear on the white. On this yellow that's got just a little bit of that puff in it, that is a 80 solid blade with a real good sharp edge. So I get that clean, non-blurry shear. Something else I'm going to tell you, which like I said, that right there, honest to God, that's no more black than what the black plate had in it. But you know that I use different people for artwork and stuff like that. This is one that Diane done for me. She does almost every bit of anything that's what would be equated to vector art. I've got a couple more that do some of the more higher end process work. One of them does seps. I do all the seps on everything above there. Naturally, I've got to have decent artwork to work with to really, really look good. But you've seen what I've pulled off with 72 DPI JPEGs or web files. But like I said, that's all in the seps. And to add on the end of it, doing it for friggin' ever. Nathan, on this thing here that I was finishing up, I thought it was, and I started thinking to myself, it's not, but I told you the white was in a 86, the white's in a 110. I wouldn't try to do this with that little bitty line right there with the white screen being an 86. It's in a 110. How hot is it down there today? It's 110 degrees, feel like, here today with 80% humidity. To me, that's miserable. You know those neck things I showed you? You guys need to get some of those coolie neck things that you can put in the refrigerator. You get them wet, they swell up. A lot of the motorcycle clubs got them, or if anybody doesn't know where to get any, there's a boy down in Florida that does mine for me on small runs. On the big runs, he sends me the blanks. I print them, send them back to him, and he puts the chemical powder granules in it, and then sends them back to me. But God, they're nice when it's hot. If you can't tell by now, I'm hot enough. I'm about delirious. I don't think the 3 back pills and 2 lemonades could have anything to do with it. But this is my gun. That's all I have to put down right there. That's good on one that was already tacky for about 30 more shirts. Ross, if you'd have had this thing on them blankets, you'd have drove down here and kissed me. Oh, talking about kissing. Hey, I met this girl that I knew from years and years and years ago that used to be a bartender down at the bars that I run when I was drinking so hard. And I met her at Kroger at the grocery store last night. She was dressed up like just come from a business meeting. I said, "Hey girl." She turned around and come up and give me this great big hug. And just as soon as I got my legs straightened back out, I told her, we talked for a little while, and I kind of put it on her. I said, "Are you seeing anybody?" And she said no, because she didn't have a ring on. And I said, "Well, have you got anybody to do anything with?" Which that was the real setup part there. And she said no. And she started looking through her purse for a card, and she said, "I hand so many of these out, I don't have one." I said, "Well, that's okay." I said, you know I'm a pretty fun guy. I said, "If you want to go do something sometime," I said, "just go to my website, my phone number's on there, and call me." Film at 11. Remember how I was talking about a little bit earlier about how my black ink marooned out on me? I don't know if this is going to show it like what I'm looking at here. This positive was printed this morning, which I said, it's hot, it's humid. But like I said, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a maroon line like it's spreading out on that positive there. See it right there? And even with that thing right there being solid black, in a week from now, that'll be maroon. It won't be black anymore. That's a crazy ass ink. But I mean, it's cheap. Nathan, this thing is turning into just a day with a crazy man. But I'm getting ready to go with automatic. And you know how I told you about I put filters on everything with the fan? There's the one, that's where my auto cuts on at. And where that high-speed whine, where that fan is, you do not want to have to replace that fan. And I wound up taking mine out and cleaning it because the guy that I bought mine from run it for almost a year with no filter there. And the glue wound up stopping the fan. You put those filters on there, you don't have to do that. Nathan, I was going to do another job after this one, but I'm too hot. This is that one that I told you that the letters look so weird and everything. There's where I got my squeegee set at. I'm doing 2/1. I don't know why somebody wanted that. Like I said, I just print what they tell me to. I'm going to have to finish the back of those nylon shirts in the morning because I ain't got anything else left in me.